Yes. Yeah. Welcome to the Klyph Notes podcast, available everywhere you get your podcasts. Thank y'all for tapping in, man. If you're listening to this, please make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, review, the whole nine. It goes a long way in helping to grow the show, man. Help get the word out. Dope episode for you. Yo, man, the Northwest music scene is thriving. I was, shout out to Casey Holdall and Brooke Olzendam. I was listening to their podcast, and the Blazers Balcony, I think is what it is. At any rate, they were talking about music scene in Portland, and I just had to give them a shout out, man, because they, let people know, man, there's a thriving music scene in Portland, but also in the Northwest, and this episode showcases that. I had a chance to chop it up with some Northwest creatives. 10,000 Rats. No, for real, that's the name of the crew. And we talk about that. We talk about the name of the crew. We talk about the project that they just released. We talk about some things that are upcoming and the scene here in Portland and Seattle and spaces in between. It's a really dope episode, man. I think you're going to dig it. Yeah, let's just get it in, man. 10,000 Rats right here on the Klyph Notes podcast. Support for the Klyph Notes podcast comes from Akepele Apparel, an idea born from a love of hip-hop, funk, and soul music and its surrounding cultures. With fashion being a huge visual part of the cultures, they've created expressive images to pay homage, invoke nostalgia, and showcase the elements that make up the lifestyle and cultures of these genres. Akepele, apparel for the music lifestyle. For more information, check out akepele.com. That's AKEPELE.com. Yes, yeah. Welcome back to the Klyph Notes podcast. Available everywhere you get your podcasts. Man, I feel crazy because I've been saying that for so many years, man, but it's available in literally everywhere you get podcasts except title. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Podcast, like everywhere. So I've been trying to say more. Make sure that you like, subscribe, rate, comment, review, share, like do the whole situation, man. Is the goal of this is to just get the word out there to let folk know, not about me, but about the guests that I have an opportunity to interview, and just dope and amazing people. So make sure y'all do that. So this was cool, man. I have a chance to catch up with somebody who I haven't talked to in a minute, and then build with somebody. And these cats are creatives. They have they put out some content that if you listen to the Welcome to the Neighborhood radio show that I do on XRAY FM every Saturday night, then you've heard some of it. But we about to get into some of the background and let y'all know some of the new stuff that they're working on. So without further ado, man, I'm about to bring in 10,000 Rats. What's good?
It's good.
Yo, man, we got the homie Jesse Desean. What's up, man?
How you doing?
It's good to see you,
Good
bro.
to see you again.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And then producer extraordinaire Andy Savoie. What's happening, man?
Good, man. Happy to be here.
That's what's up, bro. That's what's up. So, like literally a number of things to talk about. I don't remember how many years ago it was now, but Jesse, you sent me some new music, a newer project that you've been working on. And that project is Sus, which is really dope, I think, because I think anytime you have an opportunity to hear an MC over a live band, that's really dope. So we're gonna come back and talk about Sus, but I really want to dive into this brand new project that y'all just dropped, 10,000 Rats. Related to Sus because both of y'all are in the band, but just off top, like, yo, what's up with the name, B?
Oh man. It's honestly from like, I think there was like a meme like a handful of years ago, I would say like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And it just developed from this meme of like, I even forget what it was about, but it was like essentially if you had to pick like two of these groups of animals to fight these other groups of animals, and there was like 5 lions, X amount of bears, it was like 5 eagles, and there was like 10,000 rats. And we had this like text thread, and we just like, it was like a day long of just like this debate of what animal group you would like pick to like battle all the other animal groups. And somehow we like just somehow picked 10,000 rats as just like that animal group. And then and like years later, me and Jesse are just like working on some shit, and I love stupid ass names, and so we're like, oh yeah, 10,000 rats.
Yeah, it was like we were actually debating it in a sus rehearsal, and we were all just going back and forth, and just like, I mean, it's a heated meme. Like when you send it to the homies, like you get into it, you get passionate. And we had like all kind of concluded that 10,000 rats is one of the picks. And at that time, this is like years ago, like maybe 2018, 19. Andy and I just kind of like jokingly like said, we should make that like a group name. That should be our like group name together, is 10,000 rats. And so it was just, when we started working again, it was just natural, you know, like, oh, easy, 10,000 rats.
and it's just like you said, like you're like, what's with the name? Right. Exactly. Like it's one of those things where you hear and you're kind of like, what the fuck, you know? But it's still, yeah, it just kind of lingers, and it's timeless.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I think is cool about picking that name, is it is definitely, it's not going to get lost in the sauce. You know what I'm saying? When people know it and they Google 10,000 rats, you're going to get one or two things. You're going to get some crazy videos, or you're going to get the band, which is dope.
Exactly. And I think also it stemmed from like us being in sus. It's just, if you look it up on Spotify or Apple, it's extremely hard to find us. Yeah. You'd have like type in sus and then like the song name. And so we were also just like, how can we, you know, like stand apart, or at least it's like easy to find. And so like this was like, you literally type in 10,000 in Spotify or Apple, and we come up right away. So
that's what's up.
We're not really competing against anyone right now with the name.
Which is, man, in this day and age, is super important and super valuable, because there is so much content that we're hit with. So sort of on that topic, when we get an opportunity to listen to the project, the 10,000 Rats project, I think it's dope that it is a project that we get a chance, I think, to hear a lot of different styles. You know, of you guys coming together. Was that the thought, like when you were creating this project, that you wanted to sort of create a canvas of the many different things that you folks can do, or was it just, let's just get in the lab and see what we come up with?
I think, you know, we, again, like to go back to sus and everything, like it seems like we've always tried to create music that's just a little different than the norm. And how the project started, actually, we were in the middle of COVID, and we weren't really linking together for, you know, sus anymore, just because of the restrictions and all that. And Andy sent me like a bunch of beats, and the one that like really stuck out to me was Dear God, which is one of the tracks off the project, obviously. And it just felt right. It felt like something kind of refreshing from what we were used to making, essentially. And so that was kind of like the birth of the project, in a sense. So yeah, I mean, especially now that we've kind of got into our rhythm, it's like we have this idea of the genre that we want to hit. Like we really want to do kind of this mix of house and hip hop. And so you know, all the new material that we're working on is based on that, and kind of growing out from what that original 10K Rats project was. So
that's what's up.
Yeah, I would say like myself, when it came to like giving Jesse stuff, it was kind of like at that point I was giving like other rappers and artists a bunch of boom bap and like a little more hard hitting like hip hop beats, essentially. And it was a nice departure, because I also have a vault of just all this house stuff that I've made, and like I'm in a group called Remember Face, which is definitely a little more like an abstract feel, a little more jarring, kind of industrial sound. So I was trying to find like a happy medium, and this is like the perfect happy medium of like being able to do some like house inspired hip hop fusion, but also kind of still have some of this like simple based boom bap like in there, and trying to find like a happy melody between or harmony between those genres.
Okay, okay. So two questions that. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with you, Andy, because when I listened to the project for the first time, there was something that hit me. So I have a question about just your production, your development of production. Like where when you started making music. This is such a cliche-ish question, but I'm really curious in terms of influence. Like who were you influenced by when you started making beats? Like anybody who's been a creative, right? There was something that influenced us, and so initially, at least, we wanted to make beats that sounded like, we wanted to write rhymes that sounded like. So for you, who was that, or who is that?
Oh man, just overall influences. I guess I was brought into a pretty like musical family where like my dad, my brothers, my sisters all played instruments. So I was definitely influenced by like just being in that environment. And so I started playing drums at a young age, and I was influenced by a lot of like funk and soul, and then but also like 80s pop and like house from that era, and a lot of electronic music. So it was just like simply a fusion of just all these styles when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Because my dad would just play everything. Like he was one of those. He has extreme ADD. Not only is he an amazing guitar player, but he plays piano. And I was actually having a conversation the other day about this, about like how he would just go from one instrument to the other daily and just would just play constant music. And so being around that, I just was like just enthralled and was like, this is my life. Like I'm gonna be a musician someday.
Hmm.
And so, fast forward, I think that just like all the genres that I've listened to when I was a kid influenced me. And I started making beats when I was in high school, and it was heavily inspired by the greats from like, definitely from Primo to like Large Professor, definitely Dilla and stuff. So I like got really inspired by sampling. And from there, I think something that really hit me when it came to hip hop, because I was so into it when I was a kid too, was like, I think I was first into hip hop. I was just so like about just hearing what I heard on the radio, right? Whatever came to me, because I didn't know where to look. And once I started finally digging around middle school and really like figuring out what was out there, was beyond radio, I think something that really hit me was Deltron 3030. Like hearing, I think that song like made me believe that I could make some really crazy shit, but still stay in the hip hop realm. And I think that really struck with me, and it kind of influenced me to be like, I can always go to this sample based production, but I think that like what really interests me is like the fusion in trying to like bring those genres together.
That's what's up, bro. One of the reasons that I asked that is because what I strive to do is, just because I guess because of how many years I've had an opportunity to be on the planet, the way that I listen to music is, even in the streaming age where we get a chance to just listen to playlists and go from song to song. When I get an album, I try to listen through, like from beginning to end, because I think there was a time where when people created a project, they created it a certain way. The sequencing of the tracks were done a certain way because they want to tell a story. That's what I came up in, and so I try to listen through. So I say all that to say, when I listened to the project, to the 10,000 Rats project, and listening to Premonition, that came across like that boom bap era sample. Like that track is fire, bro. You know what I mean? But I was just curious, was I hearing what you just described? So to hear you say, like, when you started making beats and Primo and Large Pro, and like, yep, that's absolutely what I heard on that track, which is dope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was one of those joints that like, I think that was the last song we made.
Yeah.
And it was definitely the one that was like, all right, this is, because we have some other songs that are of that nature.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's put this one in as like this jump off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have this jump off song, and most of the album really isn't fitting with that.
Right.
It has a similar vibe. And I think like if you listen to Lordy Lordy, the last song, that kind of has those two, Premonition and Lordy Lordy, have the most like resemblance of each other in a sense.
Yeah.
But we wanted to keep that in because it was like true to us too, true to like, and like how we, like, you know, this, one of those beats too, like we made it and it was just like, oh, like you can just you don't need a hook or anything. You can just do a 32 or however much you want to rap on it, and it just like has that feeling because of that B section or the kind of like that B side of that, just like I don't know, just very compelling, right?
Yeah.
And so what we want to do, what we are doing coming up this year is we're going to drop a deluxe to this album, which is like at least coming with like 4 to 5 new songs on top of this that all still match that vibe with a couple of those songs touching that premonition area.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you send me that.
Oh, because we knew we're like premonition is definitely just a different, it's so different.
Yep.
And that's also why we wanted to put it out the first song, because it's like, hey, wow, here's premonition. Then we threw out Limoncello, which is vastly different.
Yep.
But it still just had that, just like, yeah, like, you know, just shows that versatility, but still like the togetherness of it.
Word up. And Limoncello, I dig that track. I actually played it on the show last night. And it's cool once again to listen through the project. And it does take you on a bit of a journey stylistically. But it is all very cohesive, and it sounds it keeps you interested because it does touch on sort of different feels throughout the project. So I just want to say, you know, I think it's great the way that you sequenced it.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, I will just add to that really quickly. Like, it's funny. I talk to a lot of artists, and I'm like pretty close with a lot of folks, and it's crazy. Like the different, you can kind of tell generationally, like how people listen to music.
Yeah.
Because a lot of young cats do just like be on like some playlist stuff, you know, like just, and it seems like the attention for music is different now. You know, that's no knock on anything, but like you hear something, you want to hear something else real quick. But I have always been one to like really digest projects. Like even first listen, I'm like, look, I got to go through it again and again, you know? And so that sequencing has always been just like mad important with all of the projects that we work on. You know, it's like, to go back to Premonition, that song actually, the intro that we originally had was kind of like on this house hip hop tip, and it just wasn't right. You know, we were just like, it doesn't work with the sequence. And so, you know, we came to what Premonition is now, and it's all about that sequence. So yeah, it's cool to hear you say that.
And I also add to, like, I feel like some of my, because I'm the same type. Like, I listen through front to back to albums, and I think that like I love it when I'm listening to an album and I don't know what track I'm on sometimes, you know, just from like the sheer just like bleed from song to song.
Yeah.
And I feel like the last time that really impacted me when it came to like a hip hop house level was K Tronada's 99.9%. There's like songs in there where you're like, oh, the track already is track 5 already, you know, like it was just cool how it just blended together. And it feels just like almost like just like a party, you know, like you're a part of like this person's set or something.
Yeah. And I some of it I think is the way that music is curated now, because now we have this access to music that's not just coming from the DJ, that we do have playlists, that we do have literally AI creating, sequencing music the way that we hear it now. I think that people are coming up, and that's what they know. Like, that's how you listen to music is that you get this constant change of vibe. And I think the cool thing about that is it helps us get introduced to new music. Man, I can't tell you how many new artists I found just from listening to Pandora, just the way that algorithm works. But I often refer to the scene in Straight Outta Compton, that scene with Dre just laying on the floor with the headphones on with records all around him. Like, that was me. You know what I mean? Literally laying on the floor, just listening to an album that way. So the way that I see it now is there's a couple different ways to listen to music, and it sort of depends on the space that you're in and literally the time that we have available. But again, I think with this project, you guys to a degree give us a little bit of both because of the way stylistically you put this thing together, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Jess, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about like the rhyme style and delivery. So Bro, I feel like you and I probably connected. It's been well over a decade, like when we first connected, because I've been doing radio for about 13 years. So it's one of the dope things to me is to hear just the development of your one, the development of your pen, and the development of your of your style, of your delivery, and then to be able to jump on a bunch of different stylistically, a bunch of different tracks. Do you think that having a chance now to perform with the live band, to well, I guess there, like perform with the live band, has had an influence on your pen and on how you rhyme?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so the last time that we actually linked up for like a project of mine was when I was rapping with Chill Crew with John Bells,
Yeah,
and the unique thing about that whole environment is that we were constantly looking for like old beats or like different beats, and so we were always pushing each other to the edge as well, and so that kind of was put into my DNA as a writer. As far as the live band stuff goes, that had always kind of been like the next step for me. Back when I was a kid, I was like, yo, I have to get into this live band stuff.
hmm,
And with Sus, what's nice about that is it's not just like a bunch of session musicians that are coming together to, play their part. It's like everybody's creating in that band. And so the first project that we dropped, it was a lot of stuff that I had already written, and we brought it to Sus and put it together as a project. Whereas everything else from there became influenced by like what happens if I perform this way.
yeah,
How do I get reaction? How do I get better? How do I breathe correctly? Like all that stuff. So it was, Sus, we had probably did around 50 shows, and I would say like between 40, 50 shows ish. Maybe a little less, maybe like 30, I don't know. But
somewhere
Like
between
10.
30 and 50 shows.
yeah, but it taught me something else. It taught me just about the value of being a performer, and once COVID hit, that's when I've kind of come into my own here today, because we no longer had performances. It was, all my focus was based on our next show,
Yeah, yeah,
and I wasn't writing a ton. I was writing, but I wasn't writing a ton. And once COVID hit, it was just like, okay, I have to kind of shift gears to figure out how to get my fix in a different way at this point. And
hmm,
so once really, like, I mean, it was straight up, I'll go back to Dear God once again. Like that particular track was like the start of a new era for me as a writer.
yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it changed things. I really focused in on what my delivery was, what I wanted my message to be, even. So yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. So I want to take a couple minutes to talk about Sus specifically. So for folk who aren't familiar, Sus is it's a live band, but talk to me about the band, talk to me about who's in the band, and talk to me about how did that collective group come together?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, Sus is a hip hop, uh, kind of like soul type of band. It's tough to like describe the exact genre, especially with the newer stuff that we're doing.
Hmm.
But essentially came together from, I have a friend from Portland named Kaylee, and she moved to Seattle right around the same time that I did, about 10 and a half years ago. And she started dating this guy named Taylor, and he's on Instagram as Tay Lawrence. He's a producer, guitarist, and Tay hit me up one day, 6 years ago at this point, and just asked if I'd be down to come and jam with them. And He was there with a bassist, a drummer at the time, not Andy, but actually another guy named Andrew, and yeah, and keyboardist. And so I brought my songs in to the band so that we can just kind of like transpose them. And we did that for a minute. The drummer dropped out, and I reached out to Andy, and I was like, "Hey, you want to come mess with this band with me?" And so that happened. Fast forward to now. Right now, we have a new bassist named Andrew,
Bruh.
Andrew Imanaka. So Andrew is just kind of like all over the scene. He plays for all types of people, does all types of stuff. Our keyboardist is Matty G. He sings and plays keys. He's phenomenal. He's kind of like classically trained. So great dude. Tay Lawrence again is on the guitar and produces a lot of the songs. And he's on drums. He produces a lot of the songs as well. And then I'm the vocalist.
That's what's
So
up.
that is us.
You mentioned being impacted, like we all were, by the pandemic, and it's interesting to, bro, when everything first jumped off, and you realized that we're gonna be stuck in the house, and those who weren't able to go to work because of whatever their profession was, and there was a sense of like, what am I gonna do, not only to keep my lights on, but what am I gonna do just to keep my mental in place. And one of the things that I said was I was real curious to see what people did with that time,
Mm.
and how they, when we were able to get outside again, what were people going to be able to show in terms of the results of that. And it sounds like and then you mentioned it, like 10,000 Rats was the result of that. That being said, I've always I love collectives. You know what I mean? Some of that is again from the era that I'm from, right? So, the fact that you guys have Sus, and then you're able to do a group project like this, like 10,000 Rats. Was that ever a part of the process when Sus was, when you guys were working and starting to do shows and writing, that hey, we could jump off and do some side projects out of this, or was it literally just a product of the pandemic?
I would say both probably.
Mm.
I've always been in other projects and have worked on, with other groups or with other artists when I was with Sus. So to me, it wasn't really like it was like one of those things where like me and Jesse were going to make something eventually, but it was like, I also was really involved with this other group. And like I said, like Jesse said, shows were like our thing. Like we were trying to make music, but it was like we were scared of like doing it ourselves. So we were like trying to book these like big studios like Robert Lang and paying a bunch of money for like 8 hours of being there, but really only recording like for 2 hours. And we're just kind of like throwing stuff. And so it was like we were really focused on the shows. And so I think there was also, I feel like at least for me, it was always like, oh yeah, I want to make something with Jesse at some point, and when the pandemic came, it was like, Sus didn't have a whole lot of stuff recorded. So it was like, for me, I'm like, I need to work on production. Like I need to be busy with that. And that's my bread and butter, I feel like. And so it was like no Sus stuff, or like there's very, minuscule Sus stuff. So it was like, I was super hungry just to work on shit and just to like work with other people. And and so I think that naturally came with like me and Jesse just being like, him also in the same boat as like, shit, Sus isn't, we're not doing anything. So like, what's good,
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like the process of us making that album took a while, like took like a year more than that, which is funny because now we're like churning shit out, just like, we're able to do that. And so I think that year needed to be like that, like just us to like, figure out that like we can take time. We have time right now. Like during COVID, everyone had time. So I think it was a really great experience. Even though COVID was fucking horrible, it was just like great for us to like, essentially be bored and need something to do, and to like reach out and connect and vibe with certain sounds. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that I was making at the time, I was just trying to just, just for me, when I go into make production, I just make some of the worst shit ever. And then I still make some of the best stuff. And so I come back to that worst shit ever and remake it. And I feel like just like at that point, I was just like just spraying stuff. And a lot of that house stuff that you heard, like Dear God and Tropic Thunder, those came from that. And it was just like a different, just me wanting to put out that style. And Jesse was down with that.
No doubt. So in going through that process then and creating and this project coming, beginning to shape and take form, how has that influenced what you're going to do next, right? So you talked about, adding tracks to sort of a deluxe version of this. Going through this first stage, has that influenced what 10,000 Rats might look like for the deluxe version and then for whatever you guys do going forward?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think that year, like if we try to do it really fast, I feel like the product would have been completely different. But at that same time, like I think like we just learned so much in that year and a half about this process. We're not established like big name artists from the Northwest right now, right? And so this is a huge learning curve, right? So we don't have a team. I'm doing most of the design. Tay from Sus, he's helping us with video work and some production too. So it's like we're really utilizing what we got, and we're just learning. We're learning along the way. So it's been a great learning opportunity of like how to like be professional when a lot of people in the scene aren't. How to be compose ourselves and how to just like also throw a party and how we want to like be able to have our sets and really like be a performance instead of just like two guys up on stage rapping and one just pressing buttons. And so I think that like moving forward, we have a pretty clear idea of what we want to do and how we want to, one, get out of where we're at to be able to like evolve and go to other places and touch other ears and just in different cities. I feel like sometimes I feel very siloed in a city like this because of the lack of support for hip hop in general, and so it's like really, I think we're looking to venture out, but also stay with this community and build a community in this city too. So yeah, I would say to answer your question, that year and a half really, I think, shaped our view of how we're going to approach music and how we put out music and how the way we perform.
Yeah, I'll add to that I think really what COVID did for us was it forced our hand to utilize the resources that we have, kind of as Andy was saying. And so before COVID, really, Andy's always been producing, but I mean, if I can say, like, never on this level, like never on this level of production. Same thing goes with Tay. He's never been on this level of production. And that was because COVID kind of sat us down on our butts and it was like, hey, this is what it is. During that time, I also set up my whole home studio, and so did everybody in Sus, and so we had to add to like what we learned from that process, we learned efficiency, like how can we cut all the fat and make this a thing that we can turn out these songs at a high rate, and at a quality rate. And so now, just the home studio alone for me as a vocalist is like, man, I tell people all the time, like, you could go and book a studio session, right? And it's this Saturday or whatever, and you get terrible sleep on Friday, like you have a bad day and you show up to the studio session and you have a certain amount of energy for that particular day. Whereas like, if you have a home studio, just yesterday, I was in the shower and this hook hit me that I've been sitting on for like months for this one beat with Tay. And this hook hit me in the shower. I didn't even write it down. I went straight down to my studio and recorded it. And, so I was in that energy right there and it sounded tight, like, and sometimes I go into my home studio session and it sounds like crap and I hear it and I'm like, okay, whatever, moving on. I didn't pay for it. So efficiency is my main point, that really has got us to a point where we're like, you can think on a different level at this point, you know. We were so bogged down with all the shows and everything, which is a beautiful thing. We made some moves off of those shows, but now we have the music to back it, you know, and that's thanks to, unfortunately, thanks to COVID for just sitting us all down and having us rethink how we approach this.
No doubt. So I heard you mention a part of the collective being able to help with the process, this creative process, in support of 10,000 Rats. Did I understand you to say that you have some visuals that you're working on for this project?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we put out, so like, I guess this for we put out a video for Premonition that was kind of like a lyric video, and then we have a video coming out for Dear God coming out pretty soon. And then we got a whole, we have just some singles that we just wanted to start throwing out,
Yeah.
and being able to throw some type of video content on top of that. Um, Tay is able to like be incorporated with us when it comes to like video and stuff, which is great. He has a great eye, and it's just like Jesse said, it's like we're all found our like our resources, whatever we can get, and everyone's kind of like knows that like if it's my project or someone I'm working with, or if it's Jesse working with someone else, or it's all of us doing a project, or me and Jesse, or Jesse and Tay, or whoever it is, it's like we're all in it together, and like whatever someone's doing, we're gonna have their back and be able to like help promote and or help do whatever we can. And so if it's production or video work or design work or graphic design work, it's that we're all down to help contribute and be a part of it. And so that's like, Andrew, who's our bass player in Sus, he was able to help us with stuff in 10,000 Rats, and same with Tay. And so it comes from not only a production level with music, but also on an artistic, graphic, and visual level too.
Bro, just like how dope is that though? You know what I mean? That you have it, like there's just this in-house production company based on.
Totally. And we
Yeah.
just wish that we could just do it full time and fuck
Yeah.
off on our jobs. Like we're always like, how can we just do this? And it's like it's like risk versus reward. Like we all like are. I think we're all blessed to be able to have a stable job, and but also able to have our support of our family, to be able to just like have time to work on music and go to shows and devote this time to something that we're really passionate about. Are we making money? Not from music, not really. Do we want to? Yeah, but also it's just we have this drive, and I think that like it's almost like without saying anything, we just know that we're all on the same page. That we all for the same goal, and the same goal is to like have our own in production house in Seattle, where we're like able to just work this full time and make money off of merch or whatever have you. It's just it's hard to crack into that, as being an independent artist. So we're just lucky that we're able to finance this on ourselves at this point. But yeah, it's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of just working together and all with the same goal in mind, which is like, hey, we would love to play some huge festivals in Europe. Like it's just simply as that. Like get out and be able to do stuff off of music. Seeing artists that we either personally know or know from the city, like being able to get out and perform and live off of music is like a beautiful thing. And it's just great to see that, and it's really, really motivating.
That's what's up, man. So now, as we are recording this in 2023, and we literally are outside now, right? We have an opportunity to do events again. I mean, festivals are happening, stages are open. Because I really haven't spent really any time in Seattle to know what the scene is like, and both of you guys having spent a chunk of time living in the Portland area and now residing in Seattle, what is the scene like in Seattle in terms of you having opportunities to get on some stages? Because I mean, I know there's a couple of big festivals that happen in Seattle. So whether it be festivals or whether it just be stage shows that you may have access to, what is it like for you guys there?
Yeah. Seattle is first and foremost a really dope artistic scene. Like, it's so tight what's happening up here right now. There are so many dope artists out here right now that are up and coming, and it's just like mad inspiring, honestly. We have a couple pretty close connections with different venues that, you know, are willing to put us on. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic right now because 10,000 Rats, we're actually planning our release show as we speak, most likely in September. So we're pretty realistic about like the size stage that we can get. You know, like I think that's one thing as an artist, you have to know like where your value lies as far as what type of venue you can pull numbers in and what are those numbers. You do not want to have this big venue that holds 250 people and pull 10 people out.
Bruh.
You want to have a venue that has, you know, a capacity of 100 and you pull 80 people out.
Come on, bro. Say that, man. Say that.
And so that's where 10K is at, is like Sus can pull around, you know, 200 people. We can pretty consistently pull that amount in Portland and in Seattle at this time.
I would say in Spokane, just because
Spokane too,
Tay has like a huge network out there.
Okay.
So it's like, as far, you know, so we're kind of like leveraging that. You know, we have a Sus project coming later this summer, and I'm sure that we can do a mid-sized venue for that. Whereas 10K, you know, we're kind of like testing the waters, but yeah. It's there, you know, there's stages available. And with that said, a lot of the venues kind of, you need to know somebody, one, and two, you need to kind of have like a track record in a sense. And so 10,000 Rats is in a funny position, although we have found a venue that we're going to work with for this release party as at least the jump off. And then again, if you know different artists and they're on board with you, you know, and you put together a certain bill, then it's obviously more appealing for a venue. So
yeah, I would say I agree with all that. I say too, like, it's sometimes tricky too. Like we're starting out as like essentially a new group with some able, like we're able to reach out and have some of those connections from the city, but it's hard, you know, it's hard like anywhere to really get on, and it's who you know, which is essentially the biggest part in Seattle. In general, and same thing with Portland, Seattle doesn't promote hip hop or like a vast amount of hip hop in the region, you know, especially when it comes to their bigger festivals, you know, and so it's sometimes challenging to work around that and to like, because there's like the stigma around it too sometimes. And so it's just like trying to like be like just approaching these venues being like, here's our project, you know, we're down to just to rock at any level. And I think that we're just at a beginning stage right now to get into that pipeline. And you know, I feel like he said, Sus, I feel like we're gonna put an album out, and since it's like hip hop with a live band element that just is different from a rapper and a DJ or just a rapper on stage. It's so different. It could be the same music,
yeah, but
it's just the perception of it is vastly different. And Seattle's always loved that perception. They've always loved that perception of the more I'm going to say more tender hip hop, right?
Yeah, that's
easier for the vast majority of people that live out here that are white, that they can like, you know, actually like grasp onto. And it's just a little bit of a challenge. And so that's, you know, we love Seattle. We love this area. We love Portland. We're going to continue always having this community and trying to build it. But we also really want to get out and experience, you know, other areas that have more of a thriving scene.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And when I say thriving scene, I say thriving like hip hop. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Portland or Seattle doesn't have a thriving scene, but because there's amazing artists out here that are just not getting sometimes getting that attention or that platform from a lot of these publications, just because there aren't a lot of publications that are supporting hip hop or that are putting it out there. You know, you have like a handful of podcasts like your own that are making waves and have been doing this for a while and putting artists on a platform. But you know, there's just not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and as again, listening to the project and then knowing a bit of what you folk are doing, not just with 10,000 Rats, but then also with Sus. I just have this visual of seeing, whether it's just these two projects or then even other projects that might come out of the collective. Bro, what a show! You know what I mean? To see, to be able to see all of that, and I mean, it's just I'm just excited for what comes next as you guys continue to create this art, to make this art. And so hopefully, you know that at least you have my platform here in Portland, whether it be playing your music from 10,000 Rats or Sus or anything from the collective on the radio stations that I'm on here, both XRAY and the Numberz, whether it be this platform, in terms of podcast interviews. And we can talk more about this off air, bro. But I do have a connection. I have some connections here for live shows, which I'd love to be able to. Anyway, we're gonna talk about more about that off air. But just know that, I think for as much as many challenges as do exist, that there are definite opportunities for creatives who, for what I'm hearing, is that are just passionate about the art. And I think if you're passionate about the art, the other pieces can happen because of that passion, because it's that's what we need, man. We need to really, at least that's what I'm on right now, when we look back at all different types of art forms and we celebrate that and we see how it is truly an example of cultures all over the planet. Putting energy into that creative process, putting energy into the art is so valuable. So thank you guys for what you're doing, for contributing to that.
Yeah, I would also build on top of that, like just being like, I think community too is a big factor in all this. And like the Seattle community, a lot of just big money has moved here. So like, the art scene to me is kind of diminishing when it comes to just like the facilities and publications, but the people and community are still thriving and are still here. And it's crazy. Like, we just went to a handful of shows. Our friend Seth and All Star Opera from out here, they put on these string of shows that are like in a bunch of different venues for 5 days straight called Seattle World Tour. And they essentially just get a bunch of our friends and musicians that are doing things that, are just down to have that platform, and they put a show on 5 days for those 5 days in a different venue every night. And like that to me is just like so sick. Like
So
it
dope.
just brings
you gotta add too that the whole purpose of that is to raise money to give out to artists who are trying to. So like their goal was 10,000. They hit that. They raised $10,000 and they're gonna give all of that to artists around the Northwest.
Wow.
So the community is crazy here. It's nuts.
Yeah.
That's so dope to hear, man. And definitely want to make sure that we're putting word out that creatives, that artists are doing that in support of other artists. Because I think sometimes, even though my contribution to the scene is a bit different, more of as a curator and a platform provider, I do know that sometimes it can feel like you're in a silo. And so to hear that you have creatives who are putting together projects to support other creators, I mean, that's beautiful, bro. I mean, that's how you grow a scene. That's really how you grow a scene.
Yeah.
And it's really putting, like, they're really like, it's like they're talking the talk, but they're walking it too, which is like a lot of people will just talk about it and want to, and it's a lot of ideas, but they're putting it to actuality. Like they're actually doing it. During the pandemic, a lot of venues out here, and I don't know how it was in Portland, but all these venues out here were like, so many artists that were dependent on shows that didn't have that anymore, that they couldn't pay bills anymore.
Right.
Even when they were able to play these shows, they're getting paid $150 a pop, which is not a lot for some of these shows where they're opening up for these bigger acts, especially festivals. I played many festivals in Seattle where you're getting $100, $150 a pop, and you're opening up for like this big artist.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this thing where like during the pandemic, a bunch of venues were like, yeah, we're gonna start paying once everything's opened up. We're gonna start paying these artists right, and that just never happened.
Yeah.
And so it's like these artists are actually like putting the money where their mouth is, and so it's just it's beautiful to see, and it's really inspiring.
That's what's up. So Um, the project that you guys have created, 10,000 Rats, is out right now. If people want to get their hands on it, how do they do that?
Yeah, we're on all the music platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Tidal, I believe, all that. So
And Bandcamp, if you want to pay us like $5 instead of
yeah,
stream it, so yeah, Bandcamp and all those platforms. And
yeah,
then we'll be having a release party in September. We're trying to think, it might be September 9th. We haven't confirmed it yet. We'll have a bunch of merch, and then we'll be putting out a video for Dear God before then, and hopefully another single. And then we have a whole deluxe that we're working on and trying to get that out probably later this year, probably end of year.
Okay. Okay. I definitely want to make sure that people are aware of the Bandcamp, because for as much as I truly appreciate the streaming services, because it makes, whether it be for playing joints or for just getting access to music and listening to music, I definitely appreciate them. But I want to be sure that people are up on the Bandcamp, because that is absolutely a way that we can contribute to the movement. So once again, let them know what the Bandcamp is.
Yeah, it's 10,000 Rats. Just all you gotta do is go to Bandcamp and type in 10,000 Rats. We don't have any competitors right now with that name.
No doubt, no doubt. It's the number 10 and then 1,000
1,000. Yeah,
Rats.
written out 1,000 Rats.
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
In terms of just connection with you folk, social media connection, being up on what's coming, what you guys are working on collectively or individually, how do people connect with you guys?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Jesse Desean, JESSEDESEAN, and Andy's.
Yeah, mine's Lesavoie, so Les Savoie. Yeah, we're both on Instagram, and DM us for anything. We're always down to rock something or talk about collaborations. I think that's something that we're really interested to, is just like talking about community. It's just, if you like our music and you either want to collab or you want to write or whatever it is, like we'll always at least respond. We're never gonna not acknowledge you.
Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Anything else that you want people to be aware of? Anything else that people should have on their radars?
Music wise, I would say, yeah, looking out for the new 10,000 Rats deluxe. We'll have, like I said, we'll have Dear God coming out, the video soon. We have another single that we're going to drop that we actually should send to you ASAP, because I think you would really mess with it.
Yes, yes.
And then when it comes to other music, for like Sus is coming out with a 5-song project end of summer, and then Jesse and Tay have a project coming out. Is it coming this year?
Yeah, we're hoping to get it out this year, kind of in the final writing and mixing process. So probably late fall, early winter.
There
Yeah.
it is.
And then more promo on my side. If you haven't yet, last year, me and Milk, rapper from Portland, put out an album called Windbreaker from Fresh Selects label. So check that out. We have another one coming. We're working on the second one right now, so that should be coming out in probably March of next year. Also promote my own shit. Me and Greg Cypher put an album out. This Greg Cypher, rapper from Seattle, shout out Kung Fu Grip. That came out in February this year. It's called Impressions Under Pressure. Check that out. I'm trying to think of what else we got going on.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. We're working a lot on music.
No doubt, man. Salute to Kung Fu Grip, man. I haven't talked to them cats in a minute. Had a chance to have them on a mic check years ago, and I think we also did an episode of Klyph Notes many years ago. So it's just cool for these circles to, you know what I mean? We're all connected. We're all connected one way or another.
Right. Yeah.
Fellas, listen, thank you so much for taking some time to come on the podcast and to let us know what you guys are working on. Thank you again for making great art. It makes what I do that much more enjoyable in terms of being a curator and sharing with communities. Definitely appreciate you guys, and really am looking forward to, what's coming next from both 10,000 Rats and for Sussin and all of the other projects you guys are involved in, man. Like I said, know that you got a platform here in the Portland area for real.
I appreciate you, man.
Yes.
And as always, you've always been a staple in the community and just proven that even more so these days. And so really do appreciate you, Klyph. Yeah, thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Klyph.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're gonna talk in a minute, man, about some potential things down here.
Love that.
Absolutely. 10,000 Rats live here on the Klyph Notes podcast. Hey, yo, once again, man, y'all, thank y'all so much for tapping into the podcast. We are available everywhere you listen to your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Shout out to Akepele Apparel for their continued support of the podcast. Check them out online at akepele.com. That's AKEPELE.com. Get you some dope gear, tees, hats, the whole nine. And last but never ever least, man, big ups to the homie Theory Hazit for creating the official theme song for the Klyph Notes podcast. All right, y'all, until we have an opportunity to do this again, y'all be blessed. Peace.